Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a point in your life when being liked isn't enough, when being approachable is mistaken for being a pushover, and when silence is seen as weakness. That's when you realize it's time to take your power back, not by being rude, not by being arrogant, but by being undeniable. Take these 5 things, and everyone, friends, critics, haters, and even bosses, will hesitate before they speak your name, let alone your face. First, take confidence that makes no apologies. Walk into every room like you belong there because you do, not with arrogance, but with purpose. Second, take silence as a weapon. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. Mystery unnerves people. When you stop oversharing, they'll start overthinking. Third, take unshakable standards. Boundaries so strong, they don't just stop others, they shock them. People fear what they can't manipulate. Fourth, take relentless discipline. When you're on your grind, distractions get quiet. You start commanding respect, not demanding it. And fifth, take eye contact that burns through lies. Look people in the eye like you already know the truth. Because often you do. This isn't about intimidation for its own sake, it's about presence, respect, strength. Take these things and you won't have to raise your voice. Your energy will speak louder than words ever could. An apologetic confidence is not loud, arrogant, or boastful. It's quiet, steady, and undeniable. It's the kind of energy that walks into a room and shifts the atmosphere without saying a word. When you carry yourself with true confidence, you stop seeking approval. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into conversations or environments that don't deserve your presence. People notice when you no longer try to explain yourself, when you don't feel the need to overcompensate, or when you don't chase validation. That kind of composure makes people uncomfortable, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because most aren't used to someone who isn't desperate to be liked. Confidence isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting yourself even when you don't. It's the calm belief that you can handle whatever comes your way. When you know your worth, you stop entertaining situations that threaten your peace. You speak less, but every word has weight. You move with purpose. You say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. You walk away when something doesn't feel right and never look back wondering if you made a mistake. People are intimidated by those who don't need external validation to feel secure. They're uneasy around someone who can stand alone, who isn't afraid of solitude, who doesn't need a crowd to feel important. When you wear your confidence like armor, not as a shield, but as a statement, you give off the kind of presence that makes others question whether they are on your level. That's the kind of confidence that doesn't need to be explained. It's simply felt. Silence is one of the most underestimated forms of power. In a world obsessed with constant noise, opinions, and oversharing, the person who can sit quietly, observe, and speak only when necessary becomes magnetic and deeply unsettling. Silence makes people uncomfortable because it leaves space for interpretation. When you're quiet, others start filling in the blanks with their own insecurities. They wonder what you're thinking, what you know, what you're planning. That mystery, that space of the unknown, is often more intimidating than any loud declaration. When you stop giving people everything, your thoughts, your plans, your reactions, they begin to realize they don't have access to you. And that distance, it builds value. People respect what they can't easily reach. Your silence tells them you are not desperate to be understood or liked. You are content within yourself. You are in control of what you give and when you give it. You are no longer performing for attention, praise, or sympathy. That level of restraint is unnerving to those who rely on the reactions of others to feel powerful. Silence also forces others to reveal themselves. When you're not constantly filling the space with your words, they often fill it with theirs. And in that, they expose what they think, what they fear, and what they assume about you. It's a strategic advantage. Listening is a form of strength. The person who observes quietly often knows more than the person who speaks first. You become unpredictable, and unpredictability is intimidating. People expect chatter, they expect justification, they expect argument. But when you give them silence, when you hold your emotions close and your words closer, they're left off balance. They start to doubt their position, their assumptions, and even their confidence. You don't need to yell to dominate a room. Sometimes the most powerful presence is the one that watches, listens, and waits, speaking only when there is something worth saying. Unshakable standards are a form of power that most people can't handle, especially those who are used to bending others to their will. When you set strong, non-negotiable boundaries, standards that aren't up for debate, you send a message, you know your worth, and you're not afraid to walk away. That's intimidating. It means you don't tolerate mediocrity, manipulation, or disrespect. It means you have already decided what you will and will not accept, and no one can talk you out of it. Most people aren't used to that level of certainty. They're used to testing limits, pushing buttons, and finding loopholes. But when your boundaries are set in stone, they run into a wall they didn't expect, and walls don't bend. Having high standards doesn't mean you're cold or unapproachable. It means you value yourself enough not to settle for less than you deserve. You don't entertain half-effort relationships. You don't say yes just to be liked. You don't tolerate behavior that drains your energy or insults your intelligence. You stop explaining why certain things are unacceptable. You simply enforce the line and let people decide whether they can meet you there or not. That clarity is threatening to people who rely on confusion to maintain control. When your standards are high, it filters out anyone who's not serious, consistent, or respectful. It's not that you become hard to get along with, it's that you become impossible to take advantage of. You develop a reputation for being someone who can't be guilt, tripped, manipulated, or emotionally swayed by flattery or pressure. And that's exactly why people begin to hesitate before approaching you. They know they can't run their usual games. They know you're not an easy target. They know any interaction with you has to be real, intentional, and respectful, or it's not happening at all. The moment you stop lowering your standards to accommodate others, you create a presence that commands respect without ever needing to raise your voice. People will call you intimidating, difficult, even arrogant. Let them. Those are the words people use when they can't control you. Relentless discipline is the kind of strength that speaks louder than any boast or threat. It's not flashy, but it's unmistakable. When someone watches you get up every day and handle your business, without complaining, without needing applause, without needing to announce it, they start to realize you're different. Discipline separates you from the crowd. It shows that you are not ruled by emotion, distraction, or laziness. You've chosen consistency over chaos, purpose over pleasure, and long-term goals over instant gratification. And that makes people nervous, especially those who rely on excuses to get by. A disciplined person isn't easily swayed. You're not the kind of person who gets pulled off track by temporary setbacks or shiny distractions. You don't skip the gym because you're tired. You don't abandon your goals because you had a bad day, and you don't break your values for convenience. That kind of self-control makes people second-guess themselves around you. They see what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're willing to endure, and it forces them to confront their own lack of effort. That quiet consistency, your ability to show up and execute even when no one's watching, is powerful. It's intimidating because it reveals who's really working and who's just pretending. Discipline is also the enemy of manipulation. When you're grounded in routine, in purpose, in vision, it's nearly impossible for others to throw you off balance. You don't fall for distractions because you're too focused on the bigger picture. You don't chase drama or validation. You're not out here trying to impress anyone. You're too busy building, and that focus creates distance. It puts you in a different league. While others are spinning in circles trying to keep up with trends, opinions, or chaos, you're locked in on your mission. That kind of tunnel vision is rare, and people don't know how to deal with it. They may call you obsessive, cold, too serious, but deep down they know what it really is, discipline, and discipline is the root of all respect. Not everyone will like you, but they'll know not to underestimate you. They'll know they can't waste your time, shake your focus, or play with your energy. You don't have to prove anything. You prove it every single day just by staying the course. Eye contact is one of the most powerful tools in human interaction, and when used with intent, it becomes a weapon of presence. The ability to look someone in the eye without flinching, without darting away, without shrinking, sends a message that words can't replicate. It tells people you're not intimidated, that you see through them, that you're alert, aware, and unafraid. Most people can't hold strong eye contact because it demands vulnerability. It exposes nervousness, dishonesty, insecurity. But when you lock eyes with someone and stay there, calmly and confidently, you shift the dynamic. You become the dominant force in the conversation without even speaking. Holding eye contact doesn't mean staring aggressively or trying to prove something. It means being so grounded in yourself that you don't feel the need to look away. It means listening with your eyes as much as your ears. It means showing presence, not passivity. People are unsettled by that kind of presence because it feels like they're being seen too clearly. They don't know how to hide behind their words or mannerisms when you're watching them closely. You become someone they can't lie to easily, someone who's hard to deceive, and that's intimidating. When you pair strong eye contact with silence or minimal speech, it becomes even more intense. It forces people to speak more carefully, to think before they talk, to be more aware of what they're saying and how they're saying it. They sense that you're not just hearing them, you're reading them. You're watching their body language, tone, micro expressions. That level of engagement can feel like pressure to someone who's used to being in control. You take that control away just by being fully present. Eye contact also signals that you're not afraid of confrontation, that you can face discomfort, that you won't back down just to make someone else feel better. And in a world where most people avoid directness, where they look at their phones, the floor, the ceiling, anywhere but someone's eyes, your gaze becomes a statement of inner power. People often associate that power with dominance, leadership, even danger, because it means you don't flinch. You don't submit. You don't need to say much. Your eyes say enough. When you become emotionally unreactive, you become untouchable. Emotional reactivity is one of the easiest ways for others to manipulate you. Poke the right button and you explode, fold, or fall apart. But when you master your emotions, when you respond instead of react, you remove that leverage. You no longer allow people to control you through provocation, guilt, flattery, or fear. You become someone they can't rattle, someone who can hear criticism, lies, or disrespect and still remain calm and composed. That calmness, it unsettles people because they realize their tactics no longer work. Being emotionally unreactive doesn't mean you suppress your feelings or pretend not to care. It means you don't let your emotions dictate your behavior. You feel everything, but you choose what deserves your response. You no longer respond to insults with defensiveness, or conflict with rage, or manipulation with emotional outbursts. You pause, you think, you observe, and in that moment of stillness, you take your power back. You show that you're not easily shaken, and that scares people who rely on emotional chaos to control situations. Most people expect reactions. They expect drama, retaliation, begging, or anger. So when they push your buttons and get nothing, no outburst, no breakdown, no desperation, they start to lose their footing. You become unreadable, and unreadable people are powerful because you can't predict them, can't trap them, can't steer them where you want them to go. You become like a mirror, reflecting energy without absorbing it. You let others expose themselves while you maintain control. That emotional stability builds a reputation. People stop playing games with you because they know you won't play back. They stop testing you because they know you won't give them the reaction they're fishing for. You create an atmosphere of clarity and control, one where people are forced to be direct, to be real, or to back off completely. Your energy becomes less about being liked and more about being respected. And respect is built not through noise, but through restraint. When you speak with precision, you instantly stand out. Most people talk to fill silence, to be heard, or to feel relevant, but someone who chooses their words carefully commands a different kind of attention. Precision in speech shows control, thought, and clarity of mind. It means you don't speak impulsively, emotionally, or just to hear yourself. You speak with intention, and intention is powerful. When every word you say has weight, people start to lean in. They listen more closely, not because you're loud, but because they know you're not wasting breath. You make them curious, you make them cautious, and eventually you make them careful about how they speak to you. When you develop the habit of saying less but meaning more, you shift the dynamics of communication. People begin to realize that when you speak, it's worth listening. You don't ramble, you don't over-explain, and you don't try to dominate the conversation with volume. Instead, your words land with impact because they are clean, direct, and free from fluff. That kind of speech often unnerves people because it doesn't give them space to twist your words or manipulate your meaning. There's no ambiguity, no weakness to exploit. It's sharp, clear, and final. Speaking with precision also shows that you're mentally sharp and emotionally grounded. You don't blurt things out in frustration. You don't make exaggerated claims or empty promises. You say what you mean, and you mean what you say. That kind of verbal discipline is rare in a world where many speak before they think. And because it's rare, it's powerful. It builds credibility. It earns trust or fear, depending on who you're dealing with. Your tone becomes calm and composed, even in high-stress situations. Your words cut through noise, remove confusion, and force people to confront the truth. And truth, when delivered without hesitation or excess, is intimidating, especially to those who hide behind confusion, distraction, or manipulation. You strip away their ability to dodge responsibility, to create drama, or to twist narratives. Your language becomes a mirror, showing people exactly what is, without embellishment or escape. People who master precision in speech often don't need to speak much at all. Their presence, paired with a few carefully chosen words, can do more than a long-winded argument ever could. They become difficult to challenge, hard to argue with, and nearly impossible to manipulate, because they've already said exactly what they meant. Nothing more, nothing less. When you detach from needing to be liked, you instantly gain a level of freedom that most people never reach. The need to be liked is one of the strongest forms of control others have over you. It makes you adjust your behavior, water down your truth, and tolerate things that go against your values, all in the name of approval. But once you let go of that craving, everything changes. You stop compromising yourself to fit into rooms you were never meant to be in. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop apologizing for existing the way you do. People don't know how to deal with someone who doesn't care about being liked. It makes them uncomfortable because they can't use social pressure, guilt, or rejection to influence you. You're no longer emotionally dependent on their acceptance, and that means they lose the upper hand. They can't manipulate you by withdrawing affection or pretending you're not good enough. You've already made peace with being misunderstood, disliked, or even criticized, and that terrifies them, because someone who's not afraid of rejection can't be controlled. Detachment from approval doesn't make you rude, cold, or arrogant. It makes you authentic. You speak more honestly. You act more freely. You live in alignment with who you really are, not who people want you to be. You say no when you need to. You hold your ground without needing to explain. You stop trying to win everyone over because you've realized that respect is more valuable than popularity. You'd rather be real and disliked than fake and accepted. And that energy shakes people. It challenges their own need for validation. This kind of detachment also breeds confidence. You're no longer chasing validation from the outside because you've found security within yourself. You don't need likes, applause, or constant reassurance. Your sense of worth isn't for sale. It's not up for debate, and that level of self-assurance is rare. Most people are constantly performing, constantly adjusting, constantly afraid of being judged. But you've let all that go, and because of that, you're dangerous to anyone who relies on people, pleasing to maintain control. When you no longer care whether people like you, you become someone they have to respect. Or fear because you've made it clear your actions are driven by purpose, not popularity, and that makes you unpredictable. It makes you powerful. When you become completely comfortable with solitude, you separate yourself from the vast majority of people. Most individuals are addicted to distraction, noise, crowds, attention, constant validation, because being alone forces them to face the one person they often try to avoid, themselves. But when you learn to enjoy your own company, to sit with your thoughts without fear or discomfort, you tap into a deep and quiet power. You're no longer running from emptiness or boredom, because your solitude is not a void, it's a sanctuary. It's where you think clearly, reset your energy, and reconnect with who you really are. People find this intimidating because they rely on connection not just for companionship, but for identity. When you're comfortable alone, it signals that you are emotionally independent. You're not desperate for attention, approval, or validation to feel whole. You don't chase relationships out of loneliness or engage in shallow conversations just to pass the time. Your peace is not dependent on anyone's presence, and that makes you unpredictable and hard to influence. You cannot be easily pressured, persuaded, or manipulated because you're not afraid of walking away. You know that being alone is not the same as being lonely. It's being in control. Solitude strengthens your boundaries. It sharpens your self-awareness. It allows you to hear your own voice without the noise of the world drowning it out. In solitude, you reflect, you grow, and you come to decisions from a place of calm rather than chaos. And once you've tasted that kind of clarity, you stop allowing people to interrupt your peace. You become more selective with who you let into your space, more intentional about where your energy goes. You don't let people in just because they show up. They have to match your peace or exceed it, and that standard alone filters out the noise. To those who can't stand to be alone, your comfort with solitude feels like rejection. They'll wonder why you don't need them, why you don't reach out, why you're so calm without constant connection, but what they're really seeing is someone who's no longer afraid of silence, someone who has learned how to self-soothe, self-motivate, and self-respect. That level of independence challenges the very foundation of how they navigate the world. It makes them question their dependence on others and exposes the ways they avoid being alone. You don't have to make announcements about your solitude. It shows in how you move, how you think, and how you refuse to tolerate unnecessary drama or noise. You are at peace, and nothing disrupts a chaotic person more than someone who doesn't need the world to feel whole. When you stop seeking external validation, you enter a realm of power that many never experience. Most people live their lives constantly seeking approval, looking for affirmation, and measuring their worth based on how others perceive them. This reliance on external validation makes people vulnerable to manipulation, self-doubt, and inconsistency. The moment you stop seeking that external stamp of approval, you free yourself from the shackles of other people's opinions. You no longer need to perform to feel valued. You no longer need others to tell you you're good enough, and you no longer give power to their judgments over your self-worth. This shift is unsettling for those around you because it means they can no longer control how you feel or behave. You no longer bend to the opinions or preferences of others. You've rooted your value in your own truth, and that is something no one can take away. When validation no longer drives you, you begin to act from a place of authenticity. You speak your truth without filtering it through the lens of how others will react. You make decisions based on what feels right for you, not based on how they will be perceived. And while this may ruffle feathers, it also commands respect. People may not always like the fact that you don't need their approval, but they can't deny that it makes you unwavering. Your behavior becomes grounded in self-assurance, and it radiates in every aspect of your life. You don't apologize for who you are, and you stop pretending to be someone you're not just to fit in. That kind of unapologetic authenticity challenges everyone who has been trained to seek validation, and it puts them on notice that you are no longer playing by their rules. This detachment from validation doesn't make you arrogant or self-absorbed. It makes you secure. People who constantly seek approval often find themselves lost in a cycle of pleasing others, chasing the next compliment, and adapting their actions based on external feedback. They're constantly reactive, never truly in control. But when you free yourself from the need for validation, you take back your agency. You stop waiting for someone to tell you you're on the right path or that your efforts matter. You know, deep down, that what you're doing is worthwhile, regardless of the external response. That certainty makes you dangerous because it's hard for people to manipulate or derail someone who answers to no one but themselves. The moment you stop seeking validation, you also stop fearing rejection. Rejection loses its power when it no longer holds the key to your self-worth. People might ignore you, criticize you, or dismiss you, but it no longer has the same emotional charge. You don't take it personally because you've already anchored your value inside yourself, not in someone else's approval. Rejection simply becomes a signal that a situation, a person, or an opportunity wasn't meant for you, and you move on without looking back. That fearlessness becomes a quiet but undeniable force. It means you will never beg for attention, never try to manipulate someone's opinion, and never compromise your integrity to gain favor. It's liberating, and that freedom is intimidating to others. As you release the need for external validation, you begin to attract the right people, the ones who are drawn to your authenticity and strength, not your ability to conform. Those who are truly aligned with you will respect you for the fact that you stand firm in your own beliefs, and they won't try to change you to suit their needs. Those who rely on others to be dependent on them for validation won't be able to manipulate or control your energy. They will either respect your boundaries or move on because you no longer make room for those who seek to influence or diminish your worth. Furthermore, the confidence that comes from being free of external validation makes you a natural leader. Leaders don't seek approval. They forge their own path, trusting their instincts and decisions, even when others question or challenge them. You begin to trust your own judgment and make decisions without second guessing, because you no longer need validation from anyone else to feel certain. You start to lead by example, showing others that they too can thrive without constantly seeking external validation. And this is something powerful. The ability to inspire others to find their own worth and authority within, without needing approval from others. Ultimately, the power of no longer seeking validation allows you to live life on your own terms. You take risks that others wouldn't dare because you're not afraid of failure. You push boundaries and break through limits because you're not constrained by the opinions of others. This shift gives you access to a level of personal freedom that many never experience. You no longer feel tethered to a system of validation that is outside of yourself. Instead, you trust in your own compass, your own vision, and your own ability to navigate the world. People around you will feel that power, and it will make them take a step back, either out of admiration or fear. Either way, you've taken control of your own life, and no one can dictate your value or your worth.